This is the Sick'em Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Online at alansamuelsdcj.com. The Sick'em Podcast is a production of Baylor Athletics. Now, here are your hosts, Brooke Bednarz and the voice of the Bears, John Morris.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Sick'em Podcast, a production of Baylor Athletics. Glad you're with us each and every week for the Sick'em Podcast. John Morris, Brooke Bednarz, and glad to have with us this week Baylor Baseball pitching coach, assistant coach Jon Strauss is with us. And here we are in late August, last week of August. And, Coach, always a good time to talk baseball. We appreciate you being with us.
I'm glad to be here.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. Well, how have you been? I mean, this is not – I think we should just start that way with every person we have on the show. Just how have you been? Because this is nothing about this has been normal.
No, not at all. I'm healthy. My family's healthy, so that's the best part. But, you know, we're just getting ready and want to coach these guys again. I know we went to Cal Poly, and my plan getting back from Cal Poly in March was to cut my hair. And then we came back, and we were in quarantine, and I actually said, I'm not going to cut my hair until I get to coach again.
Wow.
And it's been 6 months.
Yeah.
The best thing is Nikki actually likes it, my wife,
Nice.
so
That's
I actually
good.
have it. If she didn't like it, I probably would get rid of it. So I have long hair. It kind of
There's a flow going on. Everyone can't see, but it's a good looking flow.
You're a California guy. That kind
Yeah.
of fits, you know?
California, so
Yeah.
my surfer look right now, yes.
When was the last time your hair was this long?
I can't remember if
High
I've
school?
ever done this.
High school?
Never high school.
Really?
Maybe when I was a little kid and
Yeah.
my mom didn't want to deal with taking me to get a haircut, but I've never, ever been a long hair. Playing baseball. Now, you've seen some of our players over the years, like Wenzel, who has
Right.
crazy hair, but it just doesn't work in the hat and out in the heat. So
I don't know how he does it.
it's a trademark look for him.
Staple.
Looks good. Looks good on
It
you.
looks
It really
good when
does.
you can hit. If you can't hit, he would have probably cut that long ago.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're glad you're with us this week, heading into your sixth season here at Baylor. We're going to say last year was season number 5, even though it was
Five-ish.
cut short. But
5 and
heading
a
into
half.
your sixth, 20-plus years of collegiate coaching also. And you came here with Coach Rod when he came here as our head coach. How did you guys get connected? What's the history there between you and him?
Competing against each other, being in Southern California, recruiting, you know, he was a guy that you would see on the road. You know, if you know Coach Rod, you know he just is so good at making friends, and he's got a great personality. So you would hang out with him on the road. I remember when we competed, I went to Long Beach State, coached there in the dirt bag, tough kids, just played hard, and we would drive down to Malibu to this beautiful campus looking at the ocean, and you would play Pepperdine, and they would come at you, and they would outgrind you and tough you. I really respected the way they played. And when he called me with that opportunity, I just thought it was a great place to be. I love Pepperdine. I love the Christian atmosphere, the private school. So I jumped on board, and, you know, it's been, I don't know how long, 12, 13 years we've been together.
Yeah.
So longer than a lot of marriages.
So it's interesting. So Long Beach State has that image of, you know, dirtbags is their unofficial nickname. Pepperdine, you know, all expensive school, their different image. But you say under Coach Rod that they were kind of tough guys too.
Very tough. It wouldn't be what you'd expect from a private school and obviously a very affluent area.
Yeah.
But you would come in there and they could beat anybody. They had good teams and they just played so hard. And that's obviously a character of their head coach. And Rod is a tough guy. He was a tough-nosed ball player. And like I said, that's how I grew up learning the game. You just out-competed. At Long Beach State, we didn't have the greatest teams. We just were out-competed guys, and that's exactly what Rod did with that Pepperdine team. That's just very attractive to the way I did it.
So tell us about that phone call, or was it one of the times that you guys were, you know, you'd come across each other, and how'd that conversation kind of even spark to where you guys were working together?
His pitching coach, Sean Kenny, a great coach, good friend of mine, he left and went to Maryland. And Rod just called and said, would you be interested? And at that point, yeah. I mean, it was kind of an easy decision. Now, I was leaving Long Beach State, my alma mater, but you kind of get stuck in a rut doing the same thing. And as much as I was comfortable there, it was something new and different. And you know, I think Steve really likes people he can trust. That's really important to him. It's not always who's the best coach. He wants someone he could trust, someone that believed in the same things he did, and he saw that in me, and that decision from my side was pretty easy. I don't know who else was a candidate. I don't know who else he called, but I got the job, and I'm very fortunate for it.
I think you were the only one.
We're gonna go with that.
Say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You got to tell everybody though about your commute.
Yes.
When you were living in Long Beach, but you took the job at Pepperdine.
Living in Long Beach, door to door is 44 miles to Pepperdine, which is not really that far. So, living in Long Beach, having a wife and 2 kids, just started driving and kept driving for years. And the longer it went, the harder it was to move, because now I have a son in high school. They're entrenched. And the thing about Malibu, it's really expensive. And as much as I had asked Rod to pay me $5 million a year, he just wouldn't do it. I don't know why. So you just can't live there. So I would have had to move 20 miles away. And in my head, that made no sense. I would have sell my house to move 20 miles closer. So I drove, and the longer I did it, the more I couldn't.
And drove, and drove.
So yeah. So I'm picturing this as this beautiful drive along the Pacific Ocean, but you see that drive a little different, don't you?
The first maybe year, it was great. Yeah. But after a while, it's just, let's get going, let's move. I've seen the ocean. I don't care if you've seen it or not. Just pull over and watch the ocean so I can get by and get home.
Right.
It's sad to think that, but I didn't stop and jump in the ocean. Like I said, I sometimes wanted to drive into the ocean, being frustrated with the drive, but I just want to get home.
That's great.
So you were with Rod at Pepperdine how many years?
I got there in 2010.
Okay.
Started there in 10. Great program. First couple years, we were really bad, and I thought it was probably my fault. And I was really worried because I turned this program into a horrible program. And then starting 2012, we got it back going again, and we're very successful all the way through, I think, our last year there, 2015.
So I want to know, obviously, you talked a lot about, what attracted you to working with Coach Rod, just that hard-nosed kind of a team that he had built at Pepperdine. But then he convinced you to moved to Texas after your pretty much entire coaching career being in California. And there's no ocean here. We have some lakes. We have the Brazos.
Sure.
Yeah. So you got a different view of water here. Tell us about that move to Texas, and, why were you so confident that you were happy to pick up your family and move them to Texas?
Well, number one, he asked me, which was a great honor. My family was okay with it, which was another stuff that they didn't have an issue at all. I'd been here. I'd played here. I was a coach at Loyola Marymount. We played a 3-game series here. When I was at Pepperdine, we came out here and played a game. So I was familiar with the area, familiar with the unbelievable facilities. So it wasn't that hard to imagine us being here. With what we were able to do at Pepperdine with very limited resources, with a school that was very expensive, 11.7 scholarships, and just we didn't have lights. We didn't have the things that some schools had. To know we could come out here with what we had done there, with all the resources we had, it was kind of like, let's get this, let's do it. We're still young enough to get out here and see what we can do in this environment. So that was very intriguing, that the things that we could provide our student athletes that they really need with the nutrition and all that stuff that we just couldn't have. So that made it, very easy to come out here.
So Baylor and the Big 12 compared very favorably to the situation you were in at Malibu at Pepperdine.
Yeah. This is a hard conference. I think overall it's unforgiving offensively. The WCC had great pitching. It was the one thing it probably could be a name for, is they had pitching. Every team you played would have pitching. Now, sometimes the depth would fall off pretty quickly. We're out here with the Big 12. You're going to see a lot deeper depth going through, and then the lineups are just, there's probably a few more hitters in those lineups, but it's still baseball. You can still outcompete guys and do some things to win.
And your family, was there any convincing to get everybody to move to Waco?
No, I mean, my kids weren't really sure, but, first of all, as much as we asked them, I don't know if they really had a choice. My wife said,
Mom and Dad say, you're coming.
I don't know if you could go somewhere where people would treat you so welcomely in the world. I mean, coming out here, it was amazing how people would treat you. We were not outsiders. We were embraced, and we came in, and people would just help us any way they could. It was very welcoming. And learning the yes sir, no sir, that was hard. That's just not something that you're used to in California. I know as a coach, when a player would say yes sir to me, that was usually meant they were blowing me off and get away. But when you come out here, there's actually meaning to it. So my kids learning that's the way you communicate, and also understanding that's the way Texas kids will communicate. So I knew that was a sign of respect.
The big summer clearance event is still underway at Allen Samuels in Waco. Now update your essential transportation needs with 0% financing and no payments for 90 days on almost everything in stock. Brand new Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cabs, ready to roll with 0 for 72 and no payments for 90 days. And Ram Tradesman Express Quad Cabs feature up to $8,500 in values. We'll save you thousands at your friend in the car business, Allen Samuels.
Relationships, community, home. Now more than ever, these are the things that we're holding fast to. Home should restore us from today and ready us for tomorrow. It's where stories are told and relationships are forged. Within those walls, memories are made, laughter is shared, and family is gathered around the table. For these reasons, we believe in home, and that right now, there is no better place to be. If you and your family are looking to buy or sell a home, head over to magnoliarealty.com. Magnolia is a proud sponsor of Baylor Athletics.
Now, back to the Sikkim Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat.
We're here with assistant baseball coach Jon Strauss, pitching coach specifically. We just talked a little bit about your decision to move to Baylor. You told us you weren't ever a big surfer. What about your kids? Did they do anything like that, or were they welcome and happy to kind of try something new?
They're welcome to try something new. I mean, my oldest son, came out here and got to play. Was on the baseball team. I think for my youngest son, playing football in Texas was very special. It's a whole other level playing football. And he had just started getting into it in California, and then coming in here and playing football. I got here, I think, in 7th grade. So starting full contact pad football was amazing. And he just loves football so much. And then going through a whole, at Midway High School, high level 6A football was something that he'll always remember. So I think at the end of the day, maybe they were not as excited going out, but when they got here, I think it really has helped them out.
Well, your youngest is Braden,
yes,
correct? And he just he was one of the 2020 senior high school
COVID
graduates.
Senior.
Yeah.
What an awful name for that.
Yeah.
That is a rough. What was that like? And kind of walk us through, did they have a graduation? Did they get to do those things? And
we had a graduation, a socially distant graduation, and they all were spread out on the football field. So they actually got to do that. But being at home, it's a challenge not being around your friends. I mean, we're such social creatures just your senior year. But fortunately, he got through football. That's great. That didn't stop for him. It's awful for the spring sports. And he was just stuck at home, which, for his mom and myself was probably a good thing that we got to see him a little more, but I don't think he found us as entertaining as his friends. And then my oldest son, Casey, came home once Baylor was shut down. So it was kind of cool to have them all home and bond and have dinner at the table. We started walking the dog every night, which was a completely new thing. Our dog Cutter is 12. I don't think he'd ever been on a walk. And now every night about 8 o'clock, he stares at us like, let's go. So we got to take him for a walk every night. So we had a lot of family bonding, but at the end of the day, they need to get out and get back to school, and they're very happy they're here.
And Brady is here at Baylor now. You mentioned that, yeah. And going to walk on the football team.
We're waiting for a call.
When that position opens up. Yeah.
Coach Aranda,
yeah.
If you can get my number, you can get my email if you want. But
we got a lot of pull here on the Sikkim
podcast. I'm sure he will. He probably listens to it right now. He would love to. He's working out. He loves the game. He knows the game inside and out. Just waiting for that opportunity, but he'll be ready.
Brady really bulked up through high school, didn't he?
The one thing he did during this pandemic is he worked out every day just, for the opportunity that hopefully will be there one day, whether it's, this year or next year. He's working hard. He's still been working out since he's been here.
There are a lot of coaches, when you look just across all the sports, whose kids ultimately decide to stick around and come to Baylor, and you guys just moved him in. Now you're empty nesters. What do you think it says about this sports aside, what do you think it says about Baylor and this community that Waco has kind of built around the school that the coaches' kids, yourself included, want to stick around?
Well, this is an amazing place. I mean, and like you're saying, take the athletics out of it. I think you're going to be very happy just being a regular student at Baylor. My oldest son's an engineering major, Casey, and he absolutely loves it. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, our student athletes do miss a lot of what Baylor is because they're on the field, they're competing, but Baylor is so much more. There's so many things to do. My son took Spanish in Central America a couple of years ago. He spent the summer there, which is an unbelievable experience, which our athletes really don't get to do because they're competing all the time. So Baylor's got so much to offer. And I know there's a tuition exchange program at Baylor with a lot of other really good schools, but it's hard to get kids in here because nobody from Baylor leaves. It's an exchange. You mean students have to leave from the faculty, and nobody leaves here, so we can't really use it, especially when recruiting. We try to do it, but none of these Baylor people will leave. And I know Coach Rod, when we were at Pepperdine, he actually his oldest daughter Julia was looking into Baylor, but no one would leave Baylor for her to exchange, so she couldn't get it, and that's why I guess Rod probably moved his whole family out so she could go.
Well,
to
here
Baylor.
we go. Then we will bring
I'll just
her
have to bring everybody.
And Casey's set to graduate December or May?
Casey will graduate in May.
May, okay.
Engineering major. What he's going to do with that, I don't know.
Yeah.
He's really, really smart. I don't know if he's looking into a master's, which I know you have some insight in there.
My son MJ.
MJ, we'll have to be talking to him about that. Yeah. Whether, but Casey loves it. He didn't have to come here. We looked at other schools. He looked at A&M, but this is just where he wanted to be. He just liked the campus and the atmosphere, and no knock on A&M, but it was his decision, and he chose Baylor.
That's terrific.
How are you feeling about being an empty nester? Even though they're here, you're still going to see them around. They stayed close for you, but
it hasn't set in yet. My wife and I have been together this summer every day, which is we've never been through our entire life together, but never been together, and we are still married. So I think we're going to last. But we'll see. Once we get back to normal or whatever that normal is, and I get to start working, and she's plenty busy too. So, but we've been around each other a lot now, and doing things together, so it's worked out pretty well.
And
but
you
I'm
still
sure
have
she wants
Cutter.
me out here. We still have Cutter for a few more years, and he gets the brunt of the attention now.
Let's go back to last season, shortened season. You guys only played 16 games last year. You had that terrific tournament down in Houston, the Shriners Hospital for Children's Classic, 3 wins over 3 SEC teams, 2 of those comeback wins, right? Yep. That was, I guess, the highlight weekend in a shortened season. Where did you, for your pitchers, your pitching staff, where did you feel like you were headed with that team last year?
I was real confident in where we were. We didn't lose much on the mound from the year before. Kyle Hill, All-American, guy didn't give up a run. That's a lot. But other than that, we had a lot of pieces returning. We had some pretty good recruits. I was more concerned with the offense. We lost so much on offense. 2 first-rounders, Richie Cunningham, who was here for, I think, 12 years. It seems like it. Cole Herring, Josh Bissonette, who was our first recruit when we got here. So we lost so much on offense. That was more my worry is how we're going to score runs. The team, I think at that point started scoring runs. The bullpen became locked down again. I think a lot of our success, especially the last 4 years, has been our bullpen. We've had some really amazing bullpens. And something I learned long ago is when you lose games late, it kills your team. And it was really, we've made a point to really have strong bullpens, maybe to sacrifice a starter to have a stronger bullpen. And I think that's worked out pretty good. Having, 2 All-American closers and a guy that was well on his way until it all shut down.
When you're looking at your bullpen, what are the characteristics? Because obviously every pitcher has his own thing, what he specializes in. That's why they switch in and out all the time. But what would you say is an overarching characteristic of the guys that you are looking to coach here at Baylor when it comes to the bullpen?
Well, they have to have a pitch. I think the benefit of being in the bullpen is you don't need a lot of pitches. You just need one really good pitch that can get guys out. You don't need to worry about getting a guy out twice. You're going to only get him out. You're only going to see him one time. There's a toughness aspect. You got to be able to go out there with the game on the line. That might be the hardest thing to figure out because in the fall, you just don't have those opportunities. I cannot create the situation of you being in Lubbock with all those people yelling at you and the wind blowing out. I can't do that here in the fall. So until you do it, you don't. But you kind of get to know a kid, what's inside of them, what makes them tick. Do they have short memories? The other benefit that we've had here is we've had 2 guys in Montemayor and Hill that have been great mentors for our guys. I couldn't draw it up any better to have guys with that experience. And Troy and Kyle were so successful, but very different in the way they approached it. Troy was so cocky. You talk about belief in self. Some guys fake it, but Troy believed in himself. He never thought anyone was going to hit him, and that's what made him special. Kyle Hill was a little more introverted. He would really be thinking about what he could do better. He's confident, but it was just a different confident. And then, so for a guy like Boyd to be around those guys for 3 or 4 years, what a great experience for those. I don't have to do much when you have those kind of guys.
You had a couple of years ago the bullpen staff that were the old guys, yeah, veteran guys, been around a lot. That was special, wasn't it? I mean, you don't have that very often.
Just the character of those guys, number one. I mean, the success was unbelievable. Just the character. Alex Phillips is probably a guy that you'd always want on your team, even when he wasn't pitching. It was such a joy. Joe Heineman, who we put in every horrific situation you could possibly imagine. Joe, here, basically nobody out, go get him, and he would get out of it. Wow. That's why we called him a magician. It was amazing. With the stuff he had was very limited. He didn't throw really hard, but he found a way to get guys out. And then Drew Robertson, who's a guy that had a huge accident that probably shouldn't have been walking again, who just tried out for our team. He was a nobody, and to do what he did, it's the stories of the guys that we had. That's the part I like. It's just not these superstars that walk in here. It's guys that have a backstory, that have some kind of grit to them, that have failed miserably. That's the part I always tell our pitchers, and we have guys. Our guys have failed miserably. Boyd's been a failure. Hill, his freshman year was horrible. Winston's been horrible. These guys all failed, but they all succeeded. They'd all been through that. So they can help our new guys like, hey, you're going to fail. These guys have been through it. These guys can help you. When you have guys that have never failed, it's hard for them to pass on the knowledge of how to get through it. But for guys that we have now, they've been at the bottom, but they found the way to get to the top. So it's really refreshing that they have real experience to help our younger guys out.
What would you say the mindset was? I mean, obviously, there's what everyone assumes of upset, seasons canceled because of COVID, stopped short. You guys, you talked about the tournament. You guys swept all the SEC teams. That was exciting. Momentum moving forward, and then screeching halt. How have you guys been able to kind of, speak with them, kind of keep them in a positive mindset for the fact that, hey, we're all coming back. We're going to do this again. And then what was that like? I mean, you guys got the opportunity from the NCAA to get those guys back.
Well, the opportunity would not be here unless Mac Rhodes allowed that. For him to allow those seniors to come back, I don't know if he'll understand how important it was to those guys, because they wouldn't have been able to come back without those scholarships, and we wouldn't have been able to put the program together without that. I mean, the cost of the school. So that opportunity is just something that they will, they'll never forget for him doing that. When it's happened, I don't know if we really understood what was happening. You're kind of in shock. You didn't think it would go on very long. We didn't know what the coronavirus is all about. So it's going to be a couple weeks. We'll keep in shape. And then all of a sudden they canceled the World Series, which was a shock. And I think our first instinct is, why would you cancel it now? It's only 3 months from now. What are we doing? Why wait? Well, now you look into it, of course, it wouldn't have happened. So our guys are excited to be back. We've been on Zoom, which I'm sure they're sick of Zoom. We haven't really been with them just yet. At some point we will. Once we get the all clear and everybody goes through their testing, we'll be with them. But I think they're very excited. We have our freshmen, the new guys on campus, and this is a really special group. We thought we had a special group last year, and with the guys we have coming back. I mean, we lost Nick Lofton, who's a special player, but I think there's enough here to continue the tradition we've started here a few years ago.
What's the challenge for you guys roster-wise with guys coming back?
It's going to be competitive.
Yeah.
It'll be the biggest roster I think any of us have ever had. With the number of games, we don't know exactly. Are we going to have 56? Are they going to shorten it? That's still up in the air. I don't think we'll really need to worry about that just yet. But competitive, and in this climate, it may be necessary if a couple guys go down, which unfortunately may happen. We lose a couple guys that might get it. So this roster might be necessary to get through a season. It's kind of like with the major leagues having that 60-man player pool. A lot of teams are using it because they need it, unfortunately. So we might need every single one of these. I think we might have about 45 possible guys in our roster.
Wow.
But very challenging, and a lot of older pitchers that have had success. But everybody gets here and we start from scratch. The best guys are going to play. So We'll find a way to get them all working.
You need a bigger locker room, don't you?
Well, we do need a better locker room. I don't know what we're going to do. That'll be interesting once we get to that. We haven't quite gotten to the locker room just yet. That's not the priority. It's trying to get our guys healthy and on. But, yeah, at some point we'll have to be inside the locker room, and guys might be getting really close.
If you need a trailer, Flat Rock Trailers has got you covered. From light-duty single-axle utility trailers to the Big Tex tandem duals. We also carry a full line of enclosed cargo trailers. Need a motorcycle trailer? We've got them. Need a dump trailer? We've got the largest selection in the state. Oilfield trailers? We carry a full line of Big Tex trailers to handle all your needs. Trailer repairs? We repair all makes and models. We'll even rent you a trailer if you need to use one for a day. Flat Rock Trailers, your #1 source for all your trailer needs. Find us at flatrocktrailers.com.
TNG can, and here's why.
To say my wife and I have a lot to clean is an understatement. So we go to TNG Chemical, where the pros know what cleaning solutions to use and give us detailed instructions on exactly how to use them. We never got that kind of advice from any other stores. And the prices at TNG are great. From general household cleaners to odor control solutions for our pets. We go to TNG Chemical and Supply. That's why.
TNG Chemical and Supply. That's why.
Bentwood Realty is a full-service real estate firm with more than 70 high-achieving agents who desire to make a positive impact in their local communities. Their agents stay actively involved in all buying, selling, and investing real estate transactions to make sure their clients receive the utmost level of service. Established in 2011 by brokers Kim Galvan and Rick Hines, both proud Baylor alumni. Call Bentwood Realty today, 254-300-4800. They're at 601 Lake Air Drive in Waco and BentwoodRealty.com. We're visiting with Coach Jon Strauss, Baylor Baseball, this week's Sick 'em podcast. We encourage you to subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Catch us each week for a new Sick 'em podcast presented by Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, your friend in the car business. And, Coach, talking about your pitchers, I'm sure it's fun for you to watch them come through here, develop. Probably all those guys come in thinking they're going to play professional ball. Some make it. Some are there. Daniel Castano is one of those who's recently called up to the Miami Marlins. Has had, as we record this, a couple of starts in the big leagues. That's fun to see. What have you seen from Daniel?
His presence on the mound is unlike what I've seen before. He is so mature on the mound, and that's something that I would battle with him here because he's so high strung and he lived off every pitch, good and bad. But my biggest thing with him was to try to just slow it down. You got to go one pitch at a time. You can't let one pitch affect the other. You can't be bouncing off of walls. I told you a story that his first start when we were here against Washington, it was our first night. I think it was in the 70s, like a picture-perfect night in February, and I'm down the line. Daniel comes walking down the line, sweating. He had some kind of energy drink in his hand. He smelled of Bengay and everything on his body. And, like, Dan, what are you doing? If you can't get through opening night, I don't know if you're going to make it. You're trying to do this, 15 times in college or 30 times. You shouldn't have to get up when you're 21 years old. It shouldn't take much to get you excited on opening night. So that was kind of comical. And I think in the first inning, we doubled to score a run, and he was jumping up and down the dugout like, Dan, calm down.
Yeah.
And to see what he is now on the mound, just very composed. You could really tell he's under control. He didn't always make the best pitches, but he was under control every pitch, which is really a big sign of maturity for him.
Well, what does it say about him? I was doing research for this podcast, and as soon as he was announced, you go look at his Instagram and just the post of thanking everyone that helped him get there. He's Baylor's 44th major leaguer, and just talking or reading about what he wrote and talking about all the different opportunities. But he did point out that he was a 19th round pick in the 2016 draft, and just how he took the opportunity and advanced forward. What does that say about the guys that come through this program, that any opportunity they get, whether it's the first round or the 19th, that they're going to do what they can to take the most advantage of that?
Well, once you're in the system, there's a chance. Now, the system is stacked against you a little bit because it comes into a business where you're getting $1 million. You're going to have way more chances. So Dan had to fight for every opportunity he had. Nothing was handed to him. He didn't, get $1 million in the draft. He had to fight, and part of it was probably him having to mature and the work ethic. he's just a different guy. We would battle a lot when he was here because he's high strung and I'm intense. But him coming back to Baylor every offseason, you could really tell the change in the work ethic and how serious he took it. Now he's married now, so sometimes that allows you to kind of channel yourself and slow things down. And he's just a different guy. Listening to the way he talks, the way he goes about it, he's really on the right track. But he definitely fought for it. Nothing was handed to him. And I know he is very appreciative of his family and his coaches, not just myself, but any coach he's had and all the people around. He's just turned into a really quality a man now, which is the most important thing that we do.
Yeah.
I mean, the big leagues is great, but we have plenty of guys that walk through here that aren't going to pitch in the big leagues that I'm just as proud of just because of what they do. We get them at 17, 18, and then they're going to walk out of here and they're going to have to start their lives. And that's just as important as winning a baseball game in my aspect.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So you have two sons at home, two at Baylor, but you've got all these guys that you've coached through the years. That's got to be a fun part of coaching as long as you have, is just staying in touch with these guys and watching them like Daniel, mature and grow and get married and have his own family and just watch those guys evolve and mature through the years.
That's the best part of it, especially here. Rod and I have been to so many weddings in the last couple of years, which is great. One thing, they're getting married real quick here, but just going to weddings and seeing them and they still want you in their lives, which kind of, that's pretty cool to go through that. But the older I get, that I'm getting old now, the more I start appreciating it. I would say when I was younger, I probably didn't appreciate it as much. You just want to get on to the next team and let's go. Well, now you get older and you start really appreciating Joe Heinemann's of the world. I mean, I miss him, and Kyle Hill. I do a better job keeping in touch with guys now than I did in the past, because you're on to the next game, the next season. But I really start missing those guys. Sometimes during the game, I start missing Joe Heinemann. I can't call him down to the bullpen.
I hear that.
You mentioned a lot of weddings. We actually spoke with another coach, Joey McGuire. He officiated a wedding of a former player of his. If you haven't listened to that podcast, I definitely suggest going back after this one and hearing all about that. But on the other hand, he wasn't a pitcher here, but he was here for a long time. Richard Cunningham, he has been officiating weddings. I'm sure those are several weddings that you have attended. What is that like to see? We just talked about them maturing and all that, and now they're marrying each other off.
Richie is, I mean, if anybody's you've all been around him, what a special young man. We joke that he was here for so long, but I would take him for another 10 years. He's a guy that you always want. He did the right thing. His intent was right. He's everything that Baylor wants out of their student athletes. And then he goes into officiating. That just tells us what his teammates think of him. And this is what we tell recruits about this place and how special it is, that understand when you get married, these are the guys that are going to be in your wedding party. Because every wedding we go in, there's the lineup right there. It's right there. It's Dodson and Menard and McLean. They're all in everybody's wedding. And then you got Richie standing there, officiating it. That's what you're going to get out of this place. And we're going to win games because we can coach and we've got good players. But that's, at the end of the day, what's going to be more important to you. Those guys, those groomsmen in your wedding and coming back to alumni games and joking around. That's more important. And that's more what we're about. But don't get me wrong, we want to win. I don't want to undersell that.
I understand.
Relationships, community, home. Now more than ever, these are the things that we're holding fast to. Home should restore us from today and ready us for tomorrow. It's where stories are told and relationships are forged. Within those walls, memories are made, laughter is shared, and family is gathered around the table. For these reasons, we believe in home, and that right now, there is no better place to be. If you and your family are looking to buy or sell a home, head over to magnoliarealty.com. Magnolia is a proud sponsor of Baylor Athletics.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Sausage wrap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
You're listening to the Sick'em Podcast, a production of Baylor Athletics. Here again are Brooke Bednarz and John Morris.
Jon Strauss, our guest on this week's Sick'em Podcast. Again, download it and subscribe to the Sick'em Podcast and catch a new edition every week. What we as we record this, it's the first week of classes on campus. What are you guys doing now with this year's team? What can you do at this point here in the fall?
We'll have a team meeting here, unfortunately probably on Zoom again, just kind of going over the rules that we go over every year. We don't have crazy rules, just want guys to do the right thing, which I think a lot of our guys do. We don't worry too much. And just kind of waiting for the go-ahead from, Kenny Boyd and his staff when we can get going. I mean, we're in a hurry, but I don't want to get too anxious about it because we'll be out there when the time is right. And our guys are very anxious, and we're just trying to keep them under control and understand, hey, we will be where we need to be when we need to be there. Don't worry about it. But, yeah, you want to be around them again. It's been way too long we've been not around our guys. Yeah.
The freshman class moved in. I was going through your Twitter and welcome. I was like, okay, well, who are all these guys and who are you looking forward to? Specifically coaching and pitching, and who do you think could make? You talked about how important a big roster is going to be possibly this year. Who could we possibly see making an impact?
That's a great question because when we recruited these guys, they were to replace guys that were leaving. J.D. Gregson is a catcher that we think highly of him, and going out, we thought Andy Thomas would graduate and J.D. would come in and be in the mix. Well, Andy's back, which could be a great matchup because Andy is so good behind the plate, and throwing a freshman behind the plate is not the easiest thing. Shea Langolier made it look real easy, but he's a once-in-a-lifetime guy. So to have J.D. be mentored by Andy Thomas, that's great. As far as the pitching, I thought I was going to lose Boyd and Freeman and Kettler. Well, they're back. So guys like Fontenot, Ty Fontenot, it was a big lefty we love. Cameron Cayley is a two-way guy that we really think can do both. I know some people, you think he can do both, but we've got him with the ability to be a pitcher and an outfielder. Adam Muirhead's a young fireballer from down the Corpus Christi area, which we have done really well in Corpus Christi with our recruits, so we're excited about him. Drew Leach is a Baylor kid, and when you find talented kids that have Baylor ties, it's even better because they want to be here so bad. They want to perform for the school. So we can find those kind of guys. That makes it pretty special. But we have a lot of – Alex Gonzalez is a football kid that's an infielder, outfielder that's coming in that has got some special leadership qualities about him. Ryan Patterson, a young man whose dad played baseball here, another special one. So there's a lot of them. It's just – with the returning guys coming back, it's hard to see how are they really going to fit. But I think at the end of the day, with the guys that they're going to learn from, it'll all be good in the long run. It may be a little harder for them early on as far as playing time, but I think the benefit of being mentored by a guy like Andy Thomas and the Jimmy Winstons of the world, I think will benefit them when it's all said and done.
I know nobody knows this right now, but what do you think the schedule might look like in the spring?
Oh boy!
When they're pushed to push everything a little bit later, is that just a recommendation right now? That didn't pass.
That has not passed. I don't think it's been voted on. That's something that our coaches association has been in the works for a long time.
Okay.
I think just with this pandemic, it gave coaches more time to work on it.
Yeah.
A lot of it makes sense. This may be the year to try it. Just to, if more things are going to be pushed in the spring, it might be easier to push us back with basketball. And I think obviously we're going to try to go with football here, but if soccer's playing, it's to be a little harder. So maybe pushing it back. When we come back into school, we have about 3 weeks to get pitchers ready, and that's just a disaster waiting to happen. You just see what's going on with Major League Baseball. Guys are getting hurt left and right, so it takes a little longer. And it is cold here in Texas early on. It really is. In California, it's not so much, but as much as the weather's great in Texas, it's really cold in February, and it's just not the best time to be playing baseball. So I could see that. Will we go conference only? I guess that's a possibility. I think our head coaches are kind of talking about that right now, maybe to get out in front of it instead of the NC2A making the decision for us trying to come up with a good solution of whether it's just going to be conference. And if it's just conference, are you going to play more games? Because 30 games is probably not enough for a baseball season. So should we play more conference games? And that's up to the head coaches and the ADs to figure that out. They just need to tell me when I need to have a guy ready.
Yeah.
What would you say about your coaching style? Obviously, 20-plus years of collegiate coaching, nothing can quite prepare you to go through what we've been going through. So what kind of things have you kind of relied on that you've maybe built as a coach throughout the years to help you get through this conflict that is COVID?
Nothing has prepared us. I'm really about preparation. Everything I do is I want to be as prepared as I can going into a game, and I want our guys to be prepared, because once you do that, it alleviates stress. Well, I have a hard time with this situation because I can't prepare. We've had many fall schedules put together on how we're going to do it, and we keep being pushed back. So at a point, we just kind of stopped because it started getting myself and Coach Rod frustrated with, okay, this is the starting day. And when you're dealing with pitchers, you've got to work backwards, because if I need a guy to throw 2 innings on a certain date, then I have to prepare him that way. But if I don't have a start date, it's hard to get them started. So the preparation, which I kind of pride myself on, is really something I just can't do right now. So all you're doing right now is trying to keep the kids engaged, keep them excited, because they're all excited right now. And the longer they don't get to be around us, the less excited they will be. So you just try to keep engaging them. We went and we didn't decorate their rooms, but before they moved in, we put all their gear in their room. So when they walked in, they had a bunch of Baylor stuff. Usually we're there and we're helping them move in, but that's not the case. So we just wanted them to have, walk into a room and see a bunch of Baylor gear and get excited. So after that, I don't know what else we can do. They got plenty of stuff, but we'll be around them soon enough.
Have you had to rely on your guys to kind of do their own workouts? Did you give them a workout plan and then report back to you? And how do you monitor that?
Well, we can't do that. I know Coach Tibbetts gave the guys a workout plan in the summer. What they do and what they don't do, I don't know.
Okay.
We kind of live their lives through Twitter. I can see Godwin pitching on Twitter is kind of how I monitor them. Some guys did a lot. Some of the older guys, I don't think they threw much. So I get to a point where I'm going to have to give them something to do just to kind of prepare them for the season. But are they working out on their own? Probably. They're athletes. That's what they like to be active. So I don't think they're going to stay stationary. I know I've heard I called a kid and he was over at D1 Waco hitting in the batting cages. So they're going to stay active, as long as they're doing the right things and, following the guidelines and staying socially distant. But like I said, they're kids. It's hard to keep them away from each other, especially when you're trying to build a team bond and they can't bond, because our guys do such a good job of welcoming the freshmen. That's something we have prided ourselves on. You're a freshman, just shut up and stay out of the way. They're asked to help right away. When you get older, our seniors carry the gear on the road. It's not the freshmen, because the freshmen need to get to the bus. They need to get from here to there. And what happens is you end up in California without baseballs when the freshmen are taken care of, because they're just trying to get to the bus on time.
Right. So
the older guys kind of take care of that stuff. The older you get, the more responsibilities you have. So why should that be different when you get into school? I'm trying to get grades and I got to take care of all the equipment. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So we've changed that, and our seniors will help. I mean, I think the best example we had was Matt Menard a few years ago, who was our starting catcher our first year. When Shea Langoliers came in, Matt did everything he could to help Shea be the starting catcher, without any regard to his playing time. It was a special bond, and he mentored Shea into being the starting catcher. And Matt just wanted to win and be successful, and that's what he thought would help us. Luckily Matt got to DH and was very successful. But that's the kind of people we have in our program. Kyle Hill, Boyd will help you take his job. Because I think those guys know that if you're better than him, we're going to be pretty good. So that's just kind of how we foster our relationship with our guys.
Obviously, we've talked a lot on this podcast, not just with you, but with everyone, about Zoom and how we're probably zoomed out at this point. But have you guys done anything unique via Zoom to kind of try to help build those bonds, since they can't be together?
No. I mean, as far as unique, no. For the last month and a half, we have a Zoom meeting every Monday, Thursday. Nothing special, just to be in their ear, just so that, there's a lot of information with COVID, because it seems like it changes every day.
Yeah.
What's going on, what you can wear, what you can't wear. The Gator thing really disappointed a lot of guys, because that seemed to be the easier way to do it. Well, if you can't use those, but just to be in their ear and let them understand that we're here, we're still thinking about you, we're still planning. That's what we've been trying to get out of it, but nothing crazy, special games or anything like that.
How much do you watch Major League Baseball? Probably every night, right?
I follow the Dodgers, so I watch
Right.
them every night. We've had a lot more time on our hands.
Right.
When baseball came back, that was exciting. Watching Hamilton, I love Hamilton, but you can only watch it 100 times or so before you need to change the channel and watch something else.
Once is good for me.
Once is good.
But when you watch, are you coaching while you're watching? Are you trying to pick up things, or are you watching our guys like Max Muncy with the Dodgers? When you watch, what are you watching?
When I watch, I am a fan, but I will tell you, when I watch Dan Castano pitch, it's a little harder because I am thinking about what he's doing. I'm a little more emotionally involved because I know him, and I'm thinking, oh, why'd you throw that, or you got to throw this. But he's guys that I know, I will maybe start getting a little the intensity. But other than that, I don't get into it. I mean, I cheer for Max Muncy, number one because he's a Baylor guy, number two because he's a Dodger.
Sure.
It's a perfect combination. He is struggling a little bit right now.
He is.
So that's hard to watch, but I don't. There's enough stress coaching it that I don't need to get involved in things you can't control. I can't control the way those games go. But like I said, when you see Dan out there and I know him so well and I want him to do so well, that gets me going a little bit.
Yeah.
Did you get to talk to Dan at all before or after his first start?
It's funny. Dan got called up. He sent the text to myself and Rod. He got called up, exciting, and then they had the outbreak, which was scary because sometimes things happen. You don't get that chance. All of a sudden, maybe the season's canceled. Maybe you get it too, and that opportunity might not have been there. So he was in a holding pattern. Then he finally got the opportunity. So he texted me he was starting, and text back and forth. He was very appreciative of all the well wishes that Baylor had for him. I texted him. His first game, I thought he made some good pitches, but he made a couple bad pitches. But after his last – he started actually a couple days ago and didn't do very well. But his second start, he pitched really well, and I just liked his pitch mix. So I texted him after the game. I don't want to bother those guys too much. They're getting it from so many people. I know he appreciates it, but I don't want to get into their head too much that they're worried about answering me or doing something else. It's hard enough. I know he wants to stay there and he wants to work, so I'll see him in the off season at some point, and we'll rehash whatever he wants to rehash.
Very neat. Well, I know that obviously the Baylor family is excited to get sports back. We were talking baseball specifically, but we've been talking about football and all the different fall sports and just athletics in general. Excited to finally get those back as everyone's kind of starting school this week. So I want to ask you, not specifically baseball, because obviously we know that you just want to see them. It's been a while, but what are you looking forward to most when Baylor athletics return?
Well, obviously it's the kids being back and moving around and trying to have some semblance of normalcy. I want to see this football team play. I'm excited for this team. I love football. I coached my first Long Beach State, Loyola Marymount. All the schools I coached at before I got here didn't have football. So this whole football experience, we would have to recruit against it because you'd have the big schools in football. And I always say, what do you care about football? You don't play football. It's like 5 games a year at home. Who cares? Well, then you come out here and this is a big deal.
It's a little different.
This adds, it adds a lot to what you get. I mean, the facilities are created a lot because of what football brings in. So your student athletes get a lot more, and the students just in general, there's a lot more for you. So being here, you get excited and you get into college football and watching what has happened in the last couple of years, what Coach Rule did and Coach Aranda is doing. It's really exciting. So you want to see that. We have soccer field right next to us. So what Coach Jobson, our guys seem to interact with the soccer players a lot. Yeah. We've had some girlfriends there. So seeing them go and how hard they work, you want to see them get going. We went through it without playing. I don't want anyone else to go through it. They don't need to experience that. Having their student athletes not play. That's not something that anyone else needs to experience. So I want to get to that. And then obviously our volleyball team, I think they're going to be pretty good. We've got some unbelievable programs right now. And what basketball is, what a special year this could be for our basketball programs. Coach Drew might have his best team he's had, and Coach Mulkey always has a great team. So we have national championship hopes. So for them not to experience that would be really disappointing. So I just want to see them go go. I like watching Baylor on TV and going to the games if we can.
Yeah. Hopefully we have that in the very near future. Terrific to have you on with us. Appreciate your time. Thanks very much. And hope you get with your guys face-to-face here soon.
Yes.
And look forward to the season in the spring of 2021. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, Coach Jon Strauss, Baylor baseball assistant coach, pitching coach with us. For Brooke Bednarz and Coach Strauss, I'm John Morris. We'll talk to you next week with our next Sick'em podcast.
You've been listening to the Sick'em Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Online at AlanSamuelsDCJ.com. The Sick'em Podcast has been a production of Baylor Athletics.